Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. In this video we will be looking at whether Max Verstappen, who has never had to come back before in his career, can produce the greatest comeback in any sporting history, let alone in Formula One, to win an unprecedented 5 consecutive titles. We break down the simplest of the permutations that needs to occur for this historic comeback to happen. After Azerbaijan, he needed to win all the remaining 7 races, not including the sprint races, with an average of 10 points more than title leader McLaren's Oscar Piastri to overhaul him by 1 point. For Max to achieve this superhuman feat in his distinguishingly gifted career, Oscar would have to finish no higher than 3rd in all those races. After Singapore, Max unfortunately fell behind the 10 points target as he was only able to recover 6 points. But after the sprint qualifying in Austin, where he rallied round to gain an unexpected 8-point advantage, he appears to be back in the hunt. This now means that in all the remaining 6 full races and 2 sprints including the full race in Austin, Oscar needs to score more than 111 points to be outside Max's reach. Should he come second to Max in all the full races, he will have 108 points and would therefore only need just 4 points from the 2 sprint races to clinch the title. So, to be clear, Max has no chance of winning the title unless McLaren choose not to impose team orders in Oscar's favor, or he suffers a few more races in which he scores lowly or not at all. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the reason why all of Malone's lamestream media are now clamoring about McLaren taking the gloves off to allow their drivers to race without any team orders. Before now, they were all turning themselves inside out to justify McLaren applying team orders to favor Lando and restrict Oscar from pulling away at the front. We have already done several videos showing how as far back as Azerbaijan, but for McLaren team orders in Italy, Britain, and Hungary, the gap between Oscar and Lando would have been 59 points and not 25. If we now add the shame of Singapore into the equation where Lando was allowed to barge past his teammate, the gap would be 65, or if we only took the points position as at Azerbaijan into consideration, the gap would be 31. We cannot recall any races so far this season in which McLaren team orders or strategy had benefited Oscar. Every strategy call or team order has benefited Lando exclusively, to the point that he is now seen as the villain of the sport, who was roundly booed in Monza, for instance, when Oscar was ordered to switch positions with him for some ridiculous reason or the other. The incident that subsequently took place in Singapore was so damning that it overshadowed McLaren securing their back-to-back constructors' title and set the tone for a bitter rivalry going forward. Had McLaren not applied team orders to Oscar's disadvantage and Lando's benefit, he would be so far ahead as to make the adoption of team orders in his favor a foregone conclusion. The ultimate beneficiary, should they not choose to apply team orders to balance the equation in Oscar's favor, will be Max. So, all this talk about Max's chances only exist in a world where McLaren do not apply team orders to benefit Oscar going forward. But, here's the thing, how did McLaren get themselves into this position? Well, the answer, folks, is what we've been telling you ever since 2021. McLaren have been operating under orders from above, in exchange for being allowed the technical advantage that would give them the constructors' title after Red Bull. The 2 leading teams since the new ground effect era that was supposed to end Hamilton and Mercedes' dominance came into place in 2022, have been Red Bull and McLaren. McLaren were the staunchest defenders of Abu Dhabi, and we have repeatedly argued that this was the platform for their induction into Malone's inner circle. It is unusual for dominance to fluctuate between 2 teams during an era which one had the advantage. The Red Bull-Renault era, during which Vettel and Red Bull won their 4 consecutive drivers' and constructors' titles with their blown diffuser, only ended when the hybrid era came in, ushering in the period of Hamilton-Mercedes dominance. The Schumacher-Ferrari period of dominance, which was known as the V10 era, was ended by the switch to V8s. So, it is only in this current era that dominance has switched between 2 teams, and even more extraordinarily, during mid-season. Red Bull gradually pulled away from the competition in 2022, to total dominance in 2023, before a dramatic drop mid-2024 season which ended up with McLaren as Constructors' Champion and Max as the Drivers' Champion. We have shown in previous videos that Max became champion because Lando didn't have what it took as McLaren lead driver to win while driving the fastest car. Oscar, who was only in his second year at McLaren at that time, was still getting to grips with the car, and we can all see how he has progressed this year. But before going further, if you are enjoying this video, we invite those of you who haven't yet done so, to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the notification icon, to be notified when the next one is uploaded. We'd also like to urge those of you who haven't yet done so, to sign our online petition for an inquiry into the BBC and Channel 4's coverage of Lewis Hamilton and Abu Dhabi, which we have amended to include Gary Lineker's sacking by the BBC. A link has been provided in the description. If you are on X, then please repost our tweet. Thank you. Back to the closing stages of the 2025 season. Again underlining another oddity of the new ground effect era, Red Bull appear to have regained dominance in the closing stages of this season, to the extent that the same car in which Max had conceded the title as far back as the fourth round in Bahrain, is now being touted as the car in which he can win all the remaining 6 full races and 2 sprint races to effect the greatest comeback in sporting history. This fluctuating dominance between two teams that are inside Malone's inner circles appears to us to be a red flag suggesting that they have fashioned a system whereby he can decide who wins what. Yo-yoing performance has been a long-standing indication of cheating in sports. So far, McLaren have won 12 out of the first 15 of the full races this season, with Max only winning 2. And now the lamestream media are talking excitedly about the possibility of him winning the remaining 6, after consecutive victories in the 16th and 17th. This would mean that Max would end up winning 10 out of the 24 full races this season, with the most consecutive number of victories to boot. If that turnaround in itself is not enough to raise eyebrows, then good luck to you and F1. He would have had 11, if not for Lando getting in his way during the qualifying session in Singapore, according to him. This is the kind of turnaround that would put the likes of Ben Johnson and Lance Armstrong to shame, but what the heck, this is F1. To complete his plan, Malone had to make sure he had the lamestream media under control, and as a media mogul in the current climate, this was something within his reach. Abu Dhabi 2021 was the moment he showed his dominance over the media, as every single one of them somehow managed to gaslight or look the other way after their initial reactions. Now, we have a situation where they are all gaslighting the fact that in the current climate, Max is so far ahead of his teammates as to suggest that something must be up. The clearest evidence of Malone's influence is that nowhere but with independents like us and James of Fixed, are questions being asked as to the avalanche of unusual occurrences happening in F1 today. Ceteris paribus, there should be a divergence of opinions in F1 today, because that is the essence of human nature as represented by the Tower of Babel. But when they are all marching to the same drum beat, then common sense dictates that someone is the drummer. At the beginning of the season, the likes of our dearest Martin and Andrew were quick to justify McLaren applying team orders for Lando's benefit, and now all of a sudden they are calling for them to stop applying team orders so that their drivers could possibly take each other out during races so that Max can benefit. We showed you in our previous video how they all covered the outlandish notion that Max could somehow overcome a 69-point deficit in 7 GP weekends, without acknowledging that McLaren could effectively end such speculation by applying team orders like they have been doing all season, but this time in favor of the team leader. All these things, including the fluctuating technological dominance, fluid interpretation of the rules, dodgy team strategies, biased team orders and homogeneous media commentary all aligning with one common objective, is the most obvious sign of malevolent Malone control. But here's the thing. There are just too many ways in which it can all fall apart, especially because F1 is a global sport, subject to different reactions in multiple jurisdictions. Cheating Oscar out of what should have been a straightforward title will only deepen the damage to F1 around the world. But if Malone is prepared to screw the rest of the world over to sell the sport to an overindulged American audience, then so be it. Those who were quick to move on after Abu Dhabi will only have themselves to blame. By the way, isn't it rather odd that the sprint race finished under the safety car, without any outcry from America or anywhere else? Forza Ferrari.